one more, two were there then.
Yeah, two Sanam. And she got admission in Hyderabad English Institute.
Okay.
Yesterday she confirmed with that. But she was willing to join your institute.
But she came up to the second level. We had very good candidates. She also was good. Like her, there were many. So the last round, she did not come to the last round. She came to the second round of interviews. Yes.
But she was very bright student of our college.
So I was happy that you sent some of your students to IIT Bombay also.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Vipasha, please announce screen present na kare koi.
It's a request to everyone, please mute yourself and do not present the screen. I request everyone, please do not present the screen. Can we begin? Can we start?
There are only 2 minutes more, then we will start.
Okay.
Just wait for only 2-3 minutes. हाँ मैम आ रहे हैं. And some people maybe use the YouTube.
Hello, Sangeeta ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Shall we start, ma'am?
Sangeeta ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible then clearly? Sure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. This program is on YouTube also. Live program.
Ma'am, we can begin now. Sangeeta ma'am.
Okay. Vipasha?
Yes, ma'am, I'll take over.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for finding time and visiting today's web lecture. I am Vipasha Telotia, and I welcome you all on the behalf of Bhopal School of Social Science to this web lecture, an interactive session organized by the Department of Humanities. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to our respected principal, Dr. Father John P.J., respected Vice Principal, Dr. Sister Sonia, and our today's guest of honor, Dr. C.D. Sebastian Sir, HOD of Department of Humanities, Mrs. NAINA Singh ma'am. Before we get started, I request our technical in charge, Eugene Sir, to please present the video.
Dev Aharam has completed a year shortly,
and the contribution by the staff, students and well-wishers has been overwhelming. Every guest who has entered our college has become a part of this noble cause. By doing away with the custom of giving bouquets, we have made our guests a part of this social enterprise. It has generated interest amongst the student community, and their regularity is a proof in itself. It has emerged as one of the best practices of our institution's out-of-classroom learning, through which we have relentlessly aimed at providing a one-time meal for more than 250 outpatients and caretakers of AIIMS.
I request a technical in charge, Eugene sir, to please present a video of a grand initiative taken by our college, Dev Aharam.
Devi Aharam has completed a year shortly.
And the contribution by the staff, students and well-wishers has been overwhelming. Every guest who has entered our college has become a part of this noble cause. By doing away with the custom of giving bouquets, we have made our guests a part of this social enterprise. It has generated interest amongst the student community, and their regularity is a proof in itself. It has emerged as one of the best practices of our institution's out-of-classroom learning, through which we have relentlessly aimed at providing a one-time meal for more than 250 outpatients and caretakers of AIIMS.
Thank you so much, sir. Our father of the nation once said, "You must not lose faith in humanity. Humanity is an ocean, and if few drops of ocean become dirty, the ocean does not become dirty." Welcome everyone to this web lecture and interactive session on morality and action, Gandhian ethics for today's world. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the lecture, please type them into the chat box. To keep the quality of sound functional, please mute yourself, and it's a request to not present the screen. For getting e-certificate, participants have to fill the feedback form. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest of honor, Dr. C.D. Sebastian Sir, Professor of Philosophy from IIT Bombay. Sir has done graduation from Vikram University, Ujjain, Bachelor's of Theology, University Pontificia Salesiana, Rome, Italy, Masters and PhD from BHU, and was also awarded with BHU Fellowship, a postdoctoral research from University of Bristol, UK. Sir is also awarded with 2 gold medals during Masters from BHU Varanasi, IIT Bombay Excellence for Teaching Award, member of Society for Asian and Comparative Philosophy, and also Society of Intercultural Philosophy, Germany. Editor of Journal of Sacred Scriptures since 2008. Sir has been teaching in IIT Bombay since 2004 as assistant professor, 2009. Free Will and Divine Plan, a philosophical response during the time of pandemic. Now, may I request Mrs. NAINA Singh Ma'am, HOD, Department of Humanities, to formally welcome the guest. NAINA Ma'am.
Ma'am. हेलो मैम, आपका नाम लिया है इसमें। मैम आ जाइए यहाँ पे। ओके ओके जी
I'm audible.
ओके।
May I request Mrs. NAINA Singh Ma'am, HOD of Department of Humanities, to formally welcome the guest. Over to you, ma'am.
You have to unmute yourself, Dr. NAINA Singh. You have to unmute yourself.
Unmute, ma'am.
Ma'am, you're mute.
You are mute.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. NAINA ma'am.
Unmute.
Yeah.
I think there is some technical issue. Sorry, sir, for the delay.
मैम का शायद कनेक्शन वो हो रहा है। अपना
Hello. मैम नहीं अनम्यूटेड नहीं है, आप अभी चेक करिए एम आई ऑडिबल और नॉट, बिकॉज कनेक्टिविटी नहीं है.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
हाँ जी.
You can start, ma'am.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
You are audible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Vipasha. I'm so sorry. I'm extremely sorry because of the technical glitches and this connectivity. I was not able to welcome. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank Lord Almighty, because of whose blessings and grace we are able to organize and conduct this national virtual web lecture and interactive session on the topic Morality and Action, Gandhian Ethics for Today's World. Though the COVID-19 pandemic has completely changed our lives, taken so much from us, but really pandemic has also given us the opportunity to connect at a larger level virtually. Lexicon falls short of words for Reverend Father Dr. John P.J. Principal and Vice Principal Sister Soni Corain of BSSS College for their dexterous guidance, valuable support, and their inspiration behind this web lecture. I'm really grateful and thankful to them. I am profusely elated to take the opportunity to welcome our resource person of the day, the man of discussion and a fountainhead of illuminating ideas, an icon of knowledge, experience, and inspiration to all of us, Dr. C.D. SEBASTIAN. It is indeed an honor and privilege to welcome you, sir, on the behalf of the management of BSSS College, my department, my colleagues. I wish you a convivial welcome, sir. I thank you for bestowing your gracious presence as an expert speaker for this virtual web lecture to enlighten and enhance our wisdom on today's topic. With great joy, I would also like to extend a gracious and inclusive welcome to have in attendance so many participants from all parts of India to the virtual world with academicians, peers, research scholars, students. I wish you all a very successful and insightful learning session. Thanks. Over to you, Vipasha.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, may I request Dr. C.D. Sebastian, sir, Professor of Philosophy from IIT Bombay, to please begin with the lecture.
How many minutes are you going to give me, Vipasha, to
Sir,
talk?
as much as you wish. You deserve it all, sir.
It's 12:09 now. Can I take 40 minutes, 45 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vipasha, for the kind introduction, kind words. For John P.J., the principal of Bhopal School of Social Sciences, Reverend Sister Soni, the vice principal, Professor NAINA Singh, head of the Department of Humanities, Dr. Sangeeta Mahashakti, philosophy faculty, colleagues of the Department of Humanities and other departments, students of Bhopal School of Social Sciences, and other participants in this lecture. I'm immensely happy to be with you today. I thank you all for having me here. Am I audible, Vipasha?
Yes, sir, you're audible. You can continue.
Okay, very good. I appreciate the Department of Humanities and the BSSS for organizing this lecture. Dr. Sangeeta has been the person who got in touch with me and invited me out to this lecture. I thank her profusely. The topic on which I'm requested to talk is on morality and action, Gandhian ethics for today's world. In this lecture, I look at the consideration of Gandhi on morality and action in the light of Gandhi's celebrated Hind Swaraj or Indian Home Rule. I hope you can see this one. This is a small text. I'm basing myself on this book, on this text, and examine how they can be an ethical paradigm for today's world. Gandhi is a philosopher, but his writings do not reflect logical and argumentative consistency. As he himself says, I quote, "I'm not at all concerned with appearing to be consistent," unquote. Interpreting Gandhi's writings, one of the contemporary philosophers, Akhil Bigrami, who was a professor here at IIT Bombay, at the moment teaching at Columbia University, a Mumbaiker, writes, "It's generally foolhardy to write about Gandhi, not only because you are never certain you have got him right, but because you are almost sure to have him wrong. There is a lack of plain argument in his writing, and there is an indifference about fundamental objections which he himself raises to his own intuitive ideas. The truth of his claims seem to him so instinctive and certain that the mere arguments seem frivolous even to readers who disagree with them. In spite of seemed inconsistencies in his writings, Gandhi's philosophy of morals is an interesting facet to be explored. And in this lecture, our attempt is the same. And you know, my talk has 3 parts. The first part is all about morality and action, the primary concern of Gandhi. The second part is a theoretical consideration. If time allows, I will spell something about it. And the third part is I am culling out 4 elements in Gandhi's philosophy of morality and action and present before you as a paradigm. So if time is there, I will go to in detail the second part. Otherwise, I will wind up myself with the first part and the third part, which are pertinent to this talk. Let us come. Morality and action, Gandhi's primary concern. This is what I am going to present before you. Gandhi had twin notions of morality and action as his primary concerns, morality and action. Gandhi wrote, "I'm not built for academic writings, and action is my domain," unquote. He was constantly trying to understand the world around him But he was not content with interpreting it. He was trying to understand the world, but he doesn't want to interpret it. But he wanted to transform it. To transform, what is important is an action is important, not a mental transformation. An action is needed, necessary. His mission was to convert every Indian, whether he is a Hindu, Muslim, or any other, even Englishman, and finally the world, to non-violence for regulating mutual relations. Life here and now was real for Gandhi. This is the most fundamental, striking element which fascinates me. Life is not some illusion. It's not Maya. It's real here and now. The life here and now, the present life, calls for action which are morally correct. For him, doing gives rise to being. This is a position I would like to tell you. What happens when students come to the schools, to the colleges, to the institutes and all, we think that they have a permanent fixed being, essence is there, and they behave accordingly. But it is not the case. Suppose someone I'm supposed to give a recommendation to my PhD students after she or he completes a PhD. I'm giving a recommendation, a confidential letter to the institutes, IIT or universities, where they will be employed. There they go in interviews. I give in writing about that person. I do not know the person, but I know what he did, what she did. I evaluate their honesty, their actions, whatever they did, the sum total of their acting, doing, I gather together and I put in writing and say that such person is such and such. So what I wanted to say, your doing, your actions, what you do gives rise to what you are being. And I always, there is no fixed being, fixed essence, fixed satta. Satta hai nahi aapki. If there is something that's a constant becoming, you become what you are. You are not a being. Constantly, you are a dynamic person and you become. And Gandhi got this notion of doing, giving rise to being. And that's what most fascinating me in me. What I like in Gandhi's understanding. We know a person through her actions only. Through a person's doing, we come to know her being. This is what I have always held. This is what I understand from Gandhi's philosophy of action, where one makes all the possible attempts to free oneself from all attachments and aversions. That is Gandhi's action, Gandhi's doing. In this regard, Gandhi's guiding light was mainly the conception of action, karma yoga, or which we call nishkama karma of Gita. Gandhi always used to hold fast, karmanyevatigarasti ma phaleshu kathat. Don't look for the fruits of your actions. Your right is to do your actions, action for action's sake. And this is to be his guiding light. And this action is what is going to make you what you are in due course of time. In this connection, let me quote Karl Wojtyła, whom we now call St. John Paul II, who had the same philosophical conviction. He writes in his famous The Acting Person, for us, action reveals the person, and we look at a person through his action, for it lies in the nature of the correlation inherent in experience in every nature of man's action, that action constitutes the specific moment whereby the person is revealed. Action gives the best insight into the inherent essence of a person and allows us to understand that person most fully. We assume that actions provide the particular moments for apprehending and hence experientially cognizing a person. Actions, therefore, are the most adequate starting point of comprehending the dynamic nature of a person. Always remember, we have a dynamic nature, and that dynamic nature is a constant becoming, and we are not a finished product. And that's what Gandhi is. If you read very carefully Gandhi, you get the idea. Thus, we recognize the actions of a person and understand her essence. The doing of a person makes the perceiver or the cognize her being. That must be the reason. Jesus said, tree is known by the fruits, which was later on explained by Saint Basil the Great, that the tree is known by its fruit, human by his or her deeds. The fact is that Gandhi's religion was indistinguishable from humanism. He certainly reinterpreted age-old concepts, and I take a couple of them, of Maya. You know, as the Vedantins, especially the Advaitins, Maya is some sort of illusory nature of the world. Doesn't mean that world doesn't exist, but there is illusoriness everywhere. And for Gandhi, this had a different connotation. The world being an illusion, Gandhi said, no, I can't hold on to that one. He said, we cannot dismiss the suffering of our fellow creatures, therefore provide a moral alibi for ourselves. Moral alibi means moral excuse for ourselves. So people are real, sufferings are real, struggles are real, and these are not something, an illusory experience of our human beings, all of us, you and me. And so the reality of the world, the existential problem, the existential predicament, what we are, Gandhi accepted. And his second notion, the notion of dharma. The notion of dharma was a performance of duty for him, not only by the citizens, but the rulers as well. And when we put that notion of performance of duty, which he envisaged in his dharma, so everyone is called to do one's duty. We are teachers, we are supposed to do our duty. We are students, we are supposed to do our duty. The police, the judiciary, the CBI, the RBI, the army, the universities, the BSSS, every individual, every person, every entity is supposed to do its respected performance of the duty. And that is his notion of dharma. It's anything other than that. Performance of duty was something paramount of importance for Gandhi. Then the third point is the fasting. And you know, we all have the element of abstinence. We have the element of abnegation. We are for tyag and penance. And you know, this aspect is very much in us. But for Gandhi had a different nuance of it. Fasting had long been part of spiritual regimen. Gandhi made it a part of his armory of satyagraha. And ashram. Now the next one is about the ashram. Ashram was commonly considered an haven for chaos of life, for personal liberation, salvation. People used to go ashram for peace of mind, to meditate, to sit, to quiet, and to get out of the busyness of the world and, you know, chaos of the world, and a personal, you know, in meditation and liberation, you go to ashram. Gandhi's ashrams were, however, not merely places of spiritual seeking, but offered training in social service, rural uplift, elementary education, removal of untouchability, and practice of non-violence. So the entire paradigm shift is there in Gandhi's way of looking at things. And if you see very carefully, you see the notion of Maya, the notion of dharma, the notion of fasting, the notion of ashram, all had what we call as the doing person who is taking upper hand in Gandhi's philosophy. So the action is something which is a moral action for Gandhi. So morality, your morality is reflected through your actions. That's what Gandhi wanted to say. I come to the second point. A little bit, let me briefly touch upon some theoretical consideration of morality. And I know that there are some students of philosophy here sitting in front of me. And you know, for them, it's not for the teachers, not for other colleagues, for the students, those who are listening to me. For them, a couple of lines, let me tell you. See, when we theoretically look at ethics, we have three normative theories in ethics. Broadly, you divide ethics into descriptive ethics and prescriptive ethics. And descriptive ethics is ethical actions people do. That's only a description. That is, philosophy is concerned, is not there. But when it comes to prescriptions, norms, normative ethical things, there is a normativity, there is a norm, there is a standard, there is something worth which we evaluate on the basis of a standard. And that is normative ethics. And philosophies are concerned with normative ethics, normativity. There is some value, some norm on which you are judging certain things. And accordingly, the normative ethics has got three theories. One is consequentialism, which you call as utilitarianism. Second is deontologism, which you call as the duty paradigm of ethics. And the third is virtue ethics. And where are you going to put Gandhi? Is he a consequentialist? Is he a deontologist? Is he a virtue ethicist? We don't know. Gandhi is a mixture of many things. And you know, what is this? This is for my student. What is consequentialism? Your actions is right or wrong on the basis of the result, the consequence. If the consequence is right, consequence is wrong, on the basis of you judge certain things as good or bad, right or wrong. So the consequence matters. So the Sarkari policies, all the government policies, what they do, they take this consequential or utilitarian theoretical approach. The largest number gets benefit out of this policy, so it is good. That's it goes. I'm not a consequentialist. I am not ethical, theoretically, I'm not a consequentialist. Second is the deontological theoretical position. This is for my students. Second, deontology. The duty sake, duty for duty's sake. You do certain things because there is an inherent duty, rational implication, and categorical imperative within you, and you do certain actions. That's must-be-ness. You have to do it. Ought-to-be-ness is there. And this is nothing but you can't shirk it. You have to do it. A duty theory of ethics, that is deontology. One is consequence, other one is duty-based ethical theory. And the third one is virtue ethics. And you know, in Indian philosophical traditions, if you fathom very carefully, Buddhist ethics is a virtue ethics. You do certain things not for the consequence of certain things. You do certain things not because it is an obligation, a duty, but you do it for the sake of it. You do it for the heck of it. You do it because this is in itself it is good. It is not because of duty. It's not because of consequence. I do certain things and I know this should be done. And that's virtue ethics. And majority of people, if you gather together, all of us are coming in the virtue ethical realm. And Aristotle's eudaimonia, his virtue ethics is that same stuff which you see in Buddhist texts before Aristotle spelled out his ethical, theoretical considerations. Buddha had already spelled it out in this soil of India. So, virtue ethics. And Gandhi's ethics is a mixture of these three theoretical considerations. He is a consequentialist, he is a deontologist, he is a virtue ethicist. But we do not know where you are. I am not a deontologist. I am not a consequentialist. Ethically, I will go with the virtue ethical theme. I do it for the sake of this. This is a theoretical. And this is only for the students. And please remember, this is for something instructive. After all, we are teachers, right? We are teachers, and our audience mainly are our students. And we are teachers if our students are there. I am a teacher only in terms of my students. So wherever I go, I give something for my students as well. Okay, friends, come back. So ethics as a deliberate study takes place in human history. Humans at all times have to live, that is, they have to give their lives a meaning. They must plan beforehand and then implement their plans. Choose between possibilities by doing this or omitting that. Remember, by doing this or omitting that, a choice is there. Take decision and form habits, adopt attitudes, imbibe cultures, make use of the things in the given situation and shape their own lives. Human is engaged in creating herself in the whole course of her life. And it has been so thought throughout the history of humanity. The individual and the societal give a historical notion which is the basis of ethics. It means that practice is of primary concern, not so much of theory. It's precisely the philosophy which always has an ethical dimension, since it is in itself determined by action fundamentally of the ethical nature. Moral philosophy deals in general with evaluation of personal acts, conduct, motivation, and policy. And I would like to tell my students one more concept. If from my talk here, philosophically, please take two things home. One is the three ethical theories, and other one is the concept of a person. And for a student of philosophy, for an ethicist, the concept of a person is very important. And you know what we do very often? We make a mistake, a category mistake of person and human being. Human beings need not necessarily be a moral person, moral being. A person has to be moral being. And for philosophers, a moral designation is given to a person. Whereas in the biological concept, a human being comes up. Now, please remember these two things. The concept of person is central to moral philosophy. The reason is that only a person can be said to be morally responsible or duty bound. For example, infants, animals, those who are mentally insane, and those who are gone out of their mind, you cannot hold them responsible for their actions. So they are, though they are human beings, they are not persons as far as philosophers are concerned, morality, moral philosophy is concerned. There is a widespread temptation because the only persons we know are the human beings, to treat the terms person and human beings synonymously. This careless equation of meaning leads to the great deal of confusion and puzzlement in moral arguments. Most conspicuous arguments over such issues are abortion, euthanasia, environmental ethics. The distinction between a person, a moral concept, a human being, a biological concept needs to be grasped. That's what so if this is the notion of person is important, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences is a person. It's a moral entity. It has its own morality. IIT Bombay is a person. It has its own responsibility and its own duties. So any institution, our judiciary, Supreme Court is a person. Though it's an institution, it's a person. It has its own moral bindings. So what I wanted to say, when you speak of corporate social responsibility, if you are responsible to that person, even if it is institute, it is a person. We treat them as person. The question of whether a being is or is not a person has fundamental being upon our moral contact toward being. Persons are afforded with dignity, deserve respect, assume duties, responsibilities, and hold rights to degree that non-person do not. Morality is conceptually entwined with cordiality and sociability, more explicitly the welfare of well-being of others, looking after one's own welfare. When it comes to Gandhi's notion, when it comes to one's own welfare and well-being, is not immoral, but an individual who looks only after her own welfare cannot be treated or rated as highly moral. It's in fact one's societal relations stemming from being a member of a social setup which generates one's obligations and duties. Thus, moral concepts have social bearing and have to be applicable in concrete, real situations, which I call praxis or practice. And this is what I wanted to tell about Gandhi's ethics as well. Okay, so this Gandhi sees any thinking person, any rational being who can hold responsible is a person. And this distinction, please understand philosophically, these two distinctions. First is the ethical theory, second is person and human being, the differentiation. I will take, I finished now 25 minutes, 23 minutes. I will elaborate. I need another 15 minutes more, I suppose. So I come to the third part. Some specimen from Gandhi's writing. That's what Gandhi's ethics, and specimen from Gandhi's writing. That's what I wanted to highlight now. This is the third part, and I will not torment you further after this. Okay. Are you okay? It is too boring or what? Vipasha?
Going really good, and we are enjoying, and there are so many questions in the chat box for you. After your lecture, we will take the questions.
Very good, very good. I will be happier if people ask questions only. Philosophers are meant for asking questions. Vipasha, we ask questions, but we never give answers. And question is the real of life.
That is true, sir.
Don't expect answers, but question. And if you don't question, I tell you, you cease to become a human being. Question what is questionable, and question what is not questionable also. And that's the philosopher's bent. Okay, I'm very happy. Some questions have already come. Okay, I may not satisfy all of you, but let us see. some specimen for assessments of writing from Gandhi's writings. I'm going to give you a couple of quotations that will come to what it. Gandhi wrote in the chapter 13 titled in the Swaraj, what is true civilization of Kinship. 13th chapter is what is true civilization. That's the chapter. Civilization is that mode of contact which points out to a man the path of duty. See, duty is important for him. He's a deontologist when you read this one. And the path of duty. Performance of duty and observance of morality are convertible terms for him. The observance of morality is to attain mastery over our mind and our passion. So doing, we know ourselves. Unquote. This is from his own words. Thus, good action and good conduct is civilization. Then another passage from him. In chapter 17, titled The Passive Resistance of his Hind Swaraj, Gandhi extols passive resistance, which is nothing but strength of the self, which he calls soul force, Atma ki Shakti. Soul force, which is opposed to body force or violence. You know what happens with all of us? We think that our might is right when you are physical strength. But Gandhi always held the other way. Soul force. Even if you want to go a little more ahead, Antratma ki jo shakti hai, that force, that should lead you. That's a soul force, which is opposed to body force. Anyone who is strong in body alone, that person is not a person according to Gandhi. His soul should have the force, which will determine what is right and what is wrong. Even if he is physically weak, his voice of the soul will be so powerful, it will turn all the world. The ideas come out of such a soul. It is a method, I call it, it's a method securing rights by personal suffering. It's reverses resistance by arms, which is to use good force, to use gunpowder. And those who would like to develop this soul force of passive resistance have to observe perfect chastity, adopt poverty, follow truth, and cultivate fearlessness. And I tell always my students, please cultivate something called fearlessness. And if you are fearless only, you will question. If you are fearless only, you will argue. If you are fearless, suppose my students are afraid of me, they will never argue with me. But that is most unphilosophical. And if you are afraid, you are frightened, then your soul force is so weak. And Gandhi always used to say that you should have the soul force, which will make you fearless. The rest will follow. Fearlessness is a mark. In the meetings, the committees, we have fearless people, questioning, challenging. And that's the beauty of our system. And India is a land of immense fearlessness. Even if authoritarianism, even if dogmatism come, the fearlessness of the individuals survived, and philosophically that took upper hand. So fearlessness should be part of us. And that's what that firmness, that is what Gandhi emphasized in his chapter on civilization. Chapter 18, titled Education. It's very interesting. Education of his Hind Swaraj, chapter 18. Gandhi would say that character building has the first place in it, and that is primary education. Education as knowledge of letters, whether elementary education or higher education, does not make men of us. It does not enable us to do our duty. And Gandhi says that, what is more important is the character building. And yesterday on the 3rd of October, I had another paper in Calcutta. It was on educational ethics. And in this pandemic, in this COVID lockdown, in this COVID time of last 7 months or so, our policy makers, those who decide things, they think that only imparting education, learning is the only aspect of education. They are forgetting much more than that. There is something, the caring. That was why my position was that education doesn't mean You give some knowledge. Informations can be gathered from anywhere. A teacher like me need not sit here and lecture to you. You can go on your own, and your gadgets, your devices will give you informations. And information is not education alone. Learning, because of this pandemic, online teaching, we think that imparting knowledge itself is enough. That's only one-sided. There is something much more than that. There is a care of the teacher. There is a personality building. There is a character aspect of it. The care aspect of education is diminished. There is no other way, but this is the fact. Okay. So policymakers, when we decide, please always remember that we have special schools. We have differently abled children. And how about their education, their counseling, their thing? And nobody bothers about it. Anyway, that's a close. I'm not going to say that. So this character formation is very important. Chapter 20 of Hind Swaraj, which is the conclusion of the work of Gandhi, Hind Swaraj, he says, you and I have nothing to do with others. Let each do his duty. If I do my duty, that is, serve myself, I shall be able to serve others. So one's own duty, fulfilling one's own duty, it goes back the same statement I said. Your duty. It is yours, not us. Apna kaam karo. And this is what he says. This is very important. From the above passages, it's evident that Gandhi's ethics is an ethics of action. Further, Gandhi's notion of Swaraj has 4 dimensions: moral, political, economic, and social. Among them, among the moral dimension of Gandhi's vision of Swaraj, although constitute one of the 4 dimensions in which his doctrine and vision of Swaraj rests, yet is the foundation of the whole edifice. This is so because very concept of Swaraj, home rule, self-rule in Gandhi was initially conceived as a moral issue. Hind Swaraj, or the Indian Home Rule, written in 1908, that contains Gandhi's initial concept of Swaraj at moral origin. Moral consideration remained the permanent feature of Gandhi's concept of Swaraj, although the concept went on evolving, finally assumed 4 fundamental, 4-dimensional form consisting apart from moral, political, economic, and social dimensions. Gandhi's 4 pillars of Swaraj, which are the non-violence, Hindu-Muslim harmony, Swadeshi, and abolition of untouchability. So in advocacy of duty, the Gandhi is repeatedly upholding. There is a purpose. Aji, क्या बोल रहे हैं? हमसे कुछ बता रहे हैं आप?
Everyone, please mute yourself.
अच्छा, मैंने सोचा हमसे बता रहे हैं, तुम shut up करो. So in advocacy, okay, no issues. The advocacy of duty that Gandhi is repeatedly upholding, there is a purpose, a consequent state of affairs for Gandhi, and this is Swaraj. Then I come to the final part of it. There are 4 aspects which I would like to tell you, and with that I will conclude, which is his morality and actions embodiment. First is Ahimsa, second is Swaraj, third is Panchayat, and 4th is Swaraj. Sarvodaya. So Ahimsa, Swaraj, Panchayat, and Sarvodaya. These 3 चारों के बारे में बता के मैं समाप्त कर दूंगा. When we analyze the 4 elements in Gandhi's moral and political thought, namely non-violence, Swaraj, Panchayat Raj, and Sarvodaya, we see his ethics in action. Let us come to non-violence. Ahimsa, notion of Ahimsa. Let us take non-violence, which was central to Gandhi's nationalist mobilization of Indians against British rule in India. There could be many facets of violence. It can be spontaneous or planned. It can be individual or institutional. It can be physical or psychological. It can be revolutionary or authoritarian. Non-violence has no such aspects. Violence has got these sort of aspects. It can be planned. It can be spontaneous. It can be individualistic. It can be institutional. It can be physical. It can be psychological. It can be revolutionary, or it can be authoritarian. Violence. But non-violence, you cannot have such divisions or such attitude. Non-violence has no such aspects. In a world of explanation to his celebrated Hind Swaraj, Indian rule, Gandhi wrote later on, he says, Hind Swaraj was written in 1908 during my return voyage from London to South Africa in answer to the Indian school of violence and its prototypes in South Africa. I came in contact with every non-Indian anarchist in London. Their bravery impressed me, but felt that their zeal was misguided. I felt that violence was no remedy for India's ills, and her civilization required use of different and higher weapon for self-protection. So non-violence has a different dimension, different aspect, different overtone and connotation for Gandhi. And that's the first thing. Second, Swaraj. Moral consideration prompted Gandhi to write his Hind Swaraj. As he writes, it teaches the gospel of love in place of hatred. It places violence with self-sacrifice. It pits soul force against brute force. Gandhi felt that India, by enslaving herself to Western materialistic culture and civilization, lost her freedom and enslaved itself politically and economically. The cursed modern civilization felt provides scope to indulging our passion and make them unbridled. India, by rejecting the modern Western civilization that propagates immorality, these all are Gandhi's words, felt Gandhi, by adopting the Indian civilization that elevates the moral being, can liberate herself. Even for the sake of getting rid of British political domination, he rejected the very technique of violence and use of brute force, as he called it, and said, it's Swaraj when we learn to rule ourselves. The whole philosophy contained in Hind Swaraj may be condensed into few sentences such as, real home rule is self-rule or self-control or self-control. That's more important. No nation has risen without suffering. We shall become free only through such suffering. The means may be linked to a seed and end to a tree, and there is just the same inviolable connection between means and end, and there is between seed and the tree. I'm not likely to obtain the result following from the worship of my God by laying myself prostrate before the Satan. We reap exactly what we do. Such a moralistic strain continued to be Gandhi's constant companion during his voyage discovery of Swaraj. During the voyage, although the vision became broadened and deepened, assuming vast expanding horizon, encompassing with its embrace of economic, social dimensions too, apart from political, moralistic, and consideration, got itself woven into all traffic of Swaraj. Even the political, economic, social dimensions of Swaraj assumed a moral anchor. The whole traffic of Swaraj became almost moralistic piece. This is one. Self-control was the most important thing in Swaraj. There is a different dimension of ahimsa. There is a different dimension of Swaraj. And the next one is Panchayat. That is, again, strangely enough, when it came to framing the constitution, the Constituent Assembly took little notice of Gandhi's views. Gandhi had written extensively on rights and duties of citizens and the state, but had never prepared a blueprint for governance of independent India. Still, it's clear from the foreword he wrote in S.M. Agrawal's A Gandhian Constitution for Free India. It's a book published in 1946. That in the Gandhi's concept of decentralization, the primary political unity was to be village panchayat, elected by adults of the village. It was to assess, collect revenue, supervise cooperative farming, irrigation, village industries, manage the schools and police. Above the village panchayat was the hierarchy of panchayats directly elected, taluk, district and provincial levels, and apex Indian panchayat. That was his reign. The idea did not seem to have made much impression in the framers of Indian constitution. The experts committee formed by Congress Working Committee in 1946 July recommended a federal parliamentary form of government. A number of committees of the Constituent Assembly deliberated various aspects of the constitution, but do not seem to have given much thought to Gandhian approach. The drafting committee, which was in session for 4 months from October 1947 to February 1948, borrowed freely from American British Constitution and from the Government of India Act of 1935, but it did not even mention a word panchayat, not until November 1948. And almost a second thought, was clause added, panchayats. It became Article 14 of Indian Constitution. What I wanted to say, the entire paradigm of a small unit, and these days, India is not going to this vision. It's going to be a what you can say, Unitarian approach. When the lockdown came, there are 6 large countries: US, Brazil, Australia, Russia, then India, and 6 big countries. This was the lockdown was not a nationwide lockdown. It was given to the local bodies. But there is a tendency in us to go to a unified way of administering the things, which was against Gandhi's understanding of Panchayati Raj and local administration. And I have much to say it. I have strong views about it. I'm not going to spell out anything now, because it is be debate about it. Okay, next one is Sarvodaya. Gandhi's religion was a rational and ethical one. He would not accept any belief which did not appeal to his reason, or any injection did not commend. His conscience, if believable in God, not merely with our intellect, but with all being. And I think it is 50. I have spoken 40 minutes. I will wind up soon. So what is this one? This Sarvodaya movement. Let me tell you what it is then in a nutshell. This is the development and well-being of everyone. As long as everyone is concerned, that the welfare of all should be our aim. And Gandhi, we live in an age which is aware of its own defeat and moral coercioning, an age in which all the certainties are breaking down, and the familiar patterns of tilting and cracking. There is increasing intolerance and embitterment. The creative flame that kindled the great human society is languishing. The human mind, in all its baffling strangeness, variety of produced contrary types of a Buddha or a Gandhi or a Nero Hitler. It's our pride that our greatest figures of history lived our generation, walked with us, spoke to us, taught to us, and we civilized as the people of civilized living. He who wrongs no one fears no one. He has nothing to hide, so he is fearless. He looks everyone in face. His step is firm. His body is upright. His words are direct and straight. And that is what we would say about Gandhi. There are always in the world a few inspired men whose acquaintance are beyond price. I conclude. From the above discussion, one sees action that Gandhi advocated. There is purpose of actions, consequence of non-violence, Swaraj, Panchayat and Sarvodaya. It looks at the consequence of one's actions and intention of self-rule with an ethical consideration. Even the advocacy of duty that Gandhi is repeatedly upholding, there is a purpose, a consequent state of affairs for Gandhi. That's Swaraj. But when we talk of ethical position of Gandhi on non-violence, Swaraj, Panchayat and Sarvodaya, one finds elements of virtue ethics as well. So let me summarize, recapitulate what I said. First part, for Gandhi, action means correct action, that is the morality. Second part, for the students, 3 ethical theories: consequentialist theory, which is utilitarianism; deontological theory, the virtue ethics; and person, moral person, and human being, the difference between. That's for the students. Then the third part, I spoke about the ahimsa, Swaraj, Panchayat, Sarvodaya. These all are indicating this morality of action. And there is something more. Maya, fasting, dharma, ashram, all are spelling out his notion of action and morality. With these words, I end. Thank you so very much for your kind listening. I took 43 minutes. So the organizers have told me to take 45 minutes. I hope I have not exceeded my limit. Thank you so much for the patient listening. Thank you for inviting me over to this place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving your valuable insights on the topic. So with that, we will go ahead and take some time for questions. There are a lot of questions and compliments for you in the chat box. So I have just figured few of the questions that you have not covered. One student is asking, what is more important according to morality, the means of action or the end of action?
What is more important? You see, I do not know what people will say, and for me, never end justifies the means. If the end is good, and if you take a wrong means, that is unbecoming, I will never subscribe. Whatever may be the end, for the end is good. You can do all sorts of treachery. You can, you take the example of Robin Hood. He used to loot the people. To what? To do? To feed the sick and the poor and all. And for me, that is unacceptable. My action, even if my end is good, my purpose is good, my action means. So there are people, those who say that end justifies the means. I'm not such a person. That's immoral action. For me, my action, what I do, that's the moral action. Consequence is immaterial. And I do it for the sake of that one. That's it. So those who say like that, they are the people, those who are the consequentialists. The result justifies what is good and bad. Okay? Okay, that's my position. You can have your positions. Yeah.
There's one principal who is asking, in today's world, students are losing moral and ethical values. Can you suggest a few steps to inculcate the values in them so that we can see the world?
Vipasha is saying, right? Vipasha, that's a wrong thing. Huh? I have been, my whole life I spent with youngsters only. Now I'm 52 now. I have spent my whole life with youngsters. And I say, and youngsters, those who are with me, I'm teacher at IIT Bombay, and their value system is much higher. The values, this is just what you can say. I think somebody has to unmute. Okay, you know what happens? Don't mourn about it. Don't worry about youngsters. They have their own value system. They may not behave. They may not dress the way you dress. They may not dress the way you walk. But their value system is very high. And I teach group of people. I've been teaching in this institute for 17 years. And I see their ethical stand. And looking at them, my future is very bright. I do not know only this place. I taught spent my time here. I am very sure that the future of India is very bright if we have youngsters like my students, those who come here, they all are here. That they have a value system, they stand for justice, they stand for fairness, and their value system cannot be spelled out the way our old generation spelled out. Their way of dress, their habits may be different, but don't say that our youngsters are valueless. They have their own value. Some may get misguided, but they all will come back to the mainstream. That's what I believe. And I am hopeful of the younger generation. And I am envisaging a better India. If all students are like our students here, our BTech students especially, I tell you, we will have a bright future. Bright future. Don't mourn about the valuelessness of the children. I don't think. If they have failed, this is because of this series, Sebastian, because of this Sangeeta, this is because of this NAINA, we taught them. Or the parents, this is the value which is lost, is you have to hold responsibility. The parents and the elderly lot, they did not show them the right way. That's it. Okay? Go on. Hello? Hello?
Hello, Vipasha? I think she may have lost her network.
Should I check the chat box then?
Yes, just
myself, I can check.
Question one, yes, one question is very.
Pardon? इसमें सब अच्छी बातें लिखी हैं. So there is, I don't know what.
Socialist, yes. Theory of Gandhi guy. Someone asked socialism of Gandhi.
You have something more to ask me?
Yes, this one question from Nupur Vishnoi. I have heard somewhere about Gandhi's theory of socialism.
Socialism.
Can you please explain what was it? She was asking.
Gandhi's idea of socialism is not a communist idea of socialism. Please, that's why the communists are all against Gandhi notion of socialism. But now they have come back. Now, I'm not telling that something bad or good. That's it. Gandhi's notion of socialism is something, there are two elements in that one. One is the sarvodaya, the well-being and welfare of everyone. Second is a trusteeship. And this trusteeship notion, I do not know where people know about it. This, ours is a country now at the moment which is giving emphasis to capitalism. And capitalism and socialism are two what you can say, opposing views. And now the Nehru's India was a socialist India, and at the moment it is a capitalist India which is getting upper hand. This is what. And there are evils in both, in socialism as well as in capitalism. But Gandhi's notion of socialism, don't call it socialism, his trusteeship, the rich, the affluent, the owners, the capitalists, they have their wealth because the working class worked for them. So whatever is surplus, they should invest for the working class. That is this notion of trusteeship. And that's a wonderful concept. Those who are really owning the wealth, whatever profit they get, they keep for themselves. The rest they should invest on the mass, on others, those who worked for them. So that means today it's a different concept now. People speak of a corporate social responsibility and all. This is something like a trusteeship. And Gandhi's notion of that socialism is something different. I did not know whether it is workable, whether it is possible. I did not know when a capitalist gets his wealth, he will amass more wealth only. He will not be spending on the people, those who really helped him to get the profit. Okay, I don't know.
I'm really sorry, sir. There was some technical issue.
No issues.
We have one more question from Ritu Pandey. She's asking, what all concepts of Gandhi ethics that are applicable now in this pandemic situation, so that we can, go through it?
All those things, the gentleman who is asking, Lindemann or Jaylee who is asking, all those things which I spelled out, I said, all can be applicable. So his, even the notion of his notion of ahimsa. Even ahimsa doesn't mean, friends, you go and you attack someone. Ahimsa is mainly our hinsa. The hinsa ki jo bhavna hoti hai, apne man mein hoti hai. This months in your mind and in your word you are doing this sort of violence. That violence we can get rid of. Physical violence we will not do. I know my students will not do. They will not harm other people. But so much of grina hai, violence man mein hai. There is so much of what you can say, hinsa ki bhavna jo hai man mein hai, aapka vajan mein hai, usko aap elevate kar sakte hain. And I think that should be a principle, not to hurt others even in thought also. And I always tell my students, even your parents you should not hurt. Even your word can hurt people. Okay? Yeah.
So it's look like we have covered all of our questions. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before I wrap up?
No, I don't want anything to cover up. Something, you will never finish everything, Vipasha, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, I think we're good for now. We have come to the end of this web lecture. Now, I'd like to call my batchmate Nandini Srivastava for vote of thanks. Over to you, Nandini.
Thank you, Vipasha. A warm and graceful afternoon to our most valued honorable guest, Dr. C.D. Sebastian, Management Committee, worthy teachers, my dear friends, and all the participants. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks speech and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked really hard to make this enlightening lecture happen. I, Nandini Srivastava, on behalf of the Bhopal School of Social Sciences and the entire fraternity of the institution, first of all, extend my most sincere thanks to Almighty God for making today's webinar a resounding success. With His blessings and grace, we are able to make this lecture what it was. A special mention to our respected Father Principal Dr. John PJ for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best and standing as pillars of strength. I would like to extend my gratitude to our Vice Principal, Dr. Sister Sonia Corain, for her kind support and motivation. On behalf of my institution, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to our guest, Dr. C.D. Sebastian, who has graced us and this occasion with his presence. Today, we had an opportunity to know about this enlightening topic of morality and action, the Gandhian ethics for today's world. We learned how Gandhi believed morality is defined by our actions and action should be done without looking for its fruits, but for the sake of doing it. And about the importance of dharma, our rightful duties, and many more pillars of morality introduced by Mahatma Gandhi. We learned about various theories given by different theorists and the concept of how a moral person is different from human being. This knowledge will surely be going to encourage us in our future events, and I'm sure every one of us has developed even more interest in the subject of philosophy today. Your lecture have to the technical department to arrange all the technical facilities, without which the webinar wasn't possible, and our humanities department for organizing the lecture. With a deep sense of appreciation, we thank our loving teachers for their untiring efforts. Thank you everyone for joining. Kindly receive the link of feedback form in the chat box. I request all the participants to fill it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I also thank you very much for the whole, and the Vipasha, then Dr. Sangeeta, Professor NAINA Singh, all those are part of it. Very positive.
And thank you very much, sir, for your valuable contribution of the knowledge to our students and the whole nation's research scholars and faculty also. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Your principal is around?
Not, sir.
I don't think he is around, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Okay then. Okay. Okay then.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. I leave. Dr. Sangeeta, I leave. Okay?
Yes, okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Everyone, please fill the feedback form. It is compulsory for you to fill the form to get e-certificate.
Kindly resend the feedback link again, ma'am. Can you resend the feedback link again? It's not opening.
Yes, ma'am, I've resent it in the chat box. It will open now. Please check it again. Everyone
Okay,
is
ma'am. Thank
opening. I've sent it.
you.
It will open now.
Maybe
Okay, thank you.
there will be technical glitch. So because of technical glitch, certificate will be sent later within 10 or 15 minutes. So you wait for that, but you feed the feedback link. ह्यूमैनिटीज खोल लेते हैं तो पता चल जाएगा कि क्यों नहीं भेज ऊपर यहाँ हाँ भर रहे होंगे
Am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
My dear participants, due to certain technical glitches, the feedback link is not working, but you can save the link, copy it, and fill after some time. I'm extremely sorry for that. But in this virtual world and internet connectivity, certain things are there where we are helpless. So we will activate the same link. Thank you.
कौन सी मैम बोली ये लिंक नहीं वो तो यूट्यूब पे चली गई थी ये लिंक है
Fortunately, the link is working now. I request everyone to fill it.
Yes, all those who have filled the feedback form can leave. Thank you so much everyone for joining. If you have filled the feedback form, you can leave.